Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Leah. I am a fantasy writer and also a reader of many genres, but mainly fantasy, sci-fi, and literary fiction. I wanted to make this video a couple weeks ago, but I'm only just now getting to it. This is my second video ever on my channel. I have all the books here, except for the ones I've given away or read on the Libby app. And here's my notebook where I created a list, ranking them from least favorite to most favorite, 10 being least favorite, number 1 being most favorite. So starting at number 10, I actually don't have this book anymore. I gave it away to my uncle. Well, he might give it back, but for now it's with him while he's reading it. And that is Project Hail Mary. I was definitely influenced by the media circus around the release of the film. But the main reason I read this book is because my little sibling actually already gifted it to me, I think a few years ago now, and I decided I already have a copy, the movie's coming out, everyone's talking about it online, why not just read it? And I really did enjoy it. I'm going to look for like my original little review. Cute and super fun, real page turner, a few parts dragged. The problems got maybe too real in their persistence. Most of my problems with it were resolved in the last quarter. So yeah, it seems like I really enjoyed it, but it just didn't. I like a book to leave like a lasting impression on me, and months later now, I still think the story is fun, but I don't think about the characters, I don't think about the themes or anything, and that's what I like to look for in the books I read. I give it 3.5 stars. Number 9 is the third book in a series that I love, but this book I did not love, and that is The Farthest Shore by Ursula K. Le Guin. And it is the third book in the Earthsea series. I love the Earthsea series so much. I still haven't finished it, but I've read the first 4 books, and I do love all of them, and I do love this, but this was a lot more of a traditional quest fantasy than the other books in the series, and for that, it's not as close to my heart, and I did not enjoy it as much. There are some really beautiful, like, one-liner quotes in this book. Like, one of them, I'm probably going to paraphrase it wrong, but I've been, like, thinking about this quote for a while now, is something about, you cannot see the light of a candle until you bring it into a dark place. And I thought that was just really beautiful, and Ursula K. Le Guin just has this really beautiful way with words. A lot of the other books in this series are a lot more focused on these inner struggles, and this one is a lot more of an outer struggle where there is a real antagonist who is a person that the characters are on a quest to stop, and because of that, it just didn't resonate with me as much as the others. But there are some really beautiful moments in here, like these scenes with these dragons in the distance fighting each other in the sky, or when they come upon this entire group of people who are living on rafts in the ocean, and they just raise their children there and they die there in the rafts and never live on land. I thought that was a really cool fantasy concept. But yeah, so that was number 9. And I gave that also a 3.5 star rating. Number 8 is 2 books in the same slot because they are both translations of Beowulf, and it felt weird having 2 separate slots for the same book. And I will talk about some of the differences in the translations, but this was my first time reading any Beowulf translation. I think the story does hold up. Beowulf really inspired Tolkien, and Tolkien has inspired the entire modern fantasy genre. So it is really cool to see where a lot of these ideas and tropes and aesthetics come from. As far as the difference in the translations, this one is by Seamus Heaney, and I feel like what he does really well is he kind of brings this beauty in the way that the men think in this book that's really poetic, that I think without his poetic language, I wouldn't have been able to sympathize at all for those violent male characters. But he did make it interesting enough to pull me through the story. And this translation, which is a lot more recent and is a feminist translation by Maria Devana Headley, she does sort of the opposite, where she has this really emotional side to the monsters, where she helps the reader empathize with the monsters and not the men who slaughter them. And I thought it was actually really interesting reading these to compare the monsters versus the men. One thing that I didn't like so much about Maria Devana Headley's translation is she does sometimes use a little bit cringe modern language. She used hashtag in here once. That really took me out of the story, and I understand why she's doing it and I respect it, but personally it did take me out of the story, and for that I would say I like these equally. I gave them both 3.5 stars also, and that is my number 8. Number 7 is the second book in a trilogy by Garth Nix. It is a YA fantasy trilogy, and this book is called Lyriel. The first book I read last year is called Sabriel. I absolutely love this book, and I was really excited to read the next book in the series, especially because I love the world building and the magic, and it's so unique. It's this world where there is this country where the South is like 1920s, and there's no magic, and it's realistic. They have cars and phones and stuff like that. But then there's this stone wall that goes across the country, and then the North is like medieval, and it's full of magic. I thought that was really cool. And the other really unique aspect of the world building that I loved is that the magic is done with bells. They ring these bells that summon the dead and spirits, and yeah, so they use bells for the magic system, and I think that's really cool. They use them, they ring them, and it summons the dead or wakes a spirit to do your bidding, and the aesthetics of this world are really cool and really interest me. This book, unlike the first one, I think did bore me a little, especially in the middle. It had this sort of slump in the middle that I had to really push through, but overall I did enjoy it. It is very YA, but it's an older YA, so it's a little bit, it doesn't have a lot of the tropes that you might think of for the demographic. I gave it a 3.5 also. I guess I like to give a lot of those. Number 6 is, I also gave away this copy. I put it in a little free library. It was just like a really thick trade paperback copy. I didn't need to keep it. And that is Game of Thrones. And I watched the show when I was like 14, or at least that first season that is the contents of the first book, when I was 14. So I did forget a lot of the plot, and especially, or if I remembered a plot point, I didn't remember how it got there. So it was still really fun to read this book for the first time, because a lot of it did feel fresh and new. One thing I noticed about the book that I enjoyed a lot was feeling closer to the characters in the show. The show, you always sort of feel more like this third-person perspective, and even though the book is written in third person, you do feel a lot closer to their internal world and how they're feeling, and that I really enjoyed. I'm going to look at my notes and see what I said when I finished it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I said, great plot, characters, and world building. I liked feeling closer to the characters in the show. A little boring and too descriptive at times. Too much sexual assault for shock value. And Dany should have been older. That really shocked me and disturbed me, compared to, I'm not sure how old she's supposed to be in the show, but she's definitely not 13, 14 years old. And I'm not saying George R.R. Martin is evil or anything for writing that, but I do think that is a questionable choice, and as a writer you can choose to write about anything you want. So why did he choose to write about that? But anyway, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I'm going to read the next one. Number 5 is Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray, uncensored version. I gave this 4 stars. First time we're going up from 3.5. I did really love this. I think it is a great short novel. The language is really beautiful. The story is interesting. I think it's so modern and innovative for when it was written in the 1890s. I'm glad I chose to read this novel for the first time in the uncensored version. I probably will eventually read the censored original published version just to compare, but I just enjoy having the gay stuff just right there, clearly on the page, and not the undertones. Yeah, I think what I really love about the story is how the poetic writing really feels like it's hypnotizing you. It's putting you under this spell, and as it's doing that, Dorian Gray is also sort of falling into this spell where he is put under this curse that slowly brings him to his demise. And it really did mess with me. I actually had to put this down for a while. It disturbed me pretty badly, and I think maybe that's why I gave it such a low score. I think that this is a great work of literature, but I think personally I don't like to be disturbed psychologically as much as this did when I'm reading for pleasure. Sorry, my camera died and I had to change angles. Book number 4, The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I read this one on the Libby app, so I don't have it right here, but I'll put a picture up. I gave this one a 4.5 star rating. I really love this though. I think maybe like now that I sat on it, it might be a 5-star book. I really loved The Remains of the Day, which I read last year, and Clara and the Sun, which I read a couple years ago. And so this is my 3rd Ishiguro book that I've read, and it is, I believe, his only fantasy book. It is set in the Arthurian legends, and it really sparked my interest in King Arthur legend. What I really liked about this, and what I really like in fantasy literature, is when it follows not a typical protagonist, and the narrative is not a typical narrative that has become cliched. And this story followed 2 elderly people. They're a couple. They've lost a lot of their memories, and we're not sure as the readers if they've lost their memories because they're getting old and they have dementia or Alzheimer's, or if it is this spell that is cast on everyone and everyone's losing their memories. And I thought that was really a beautiful device where they're using the magic in the world to explore more realistic and literary themes and to explore the characters and their relationship. Number 3 is Tehanu, which is the 4th book in the Earthsea series. I gave this a 5-star rating. I love this book so much. Again, like the last one, it follows an older protagonist, which I think is just really cool to read in fantasy literature. It follows a middle-aged woman, and she isn't even some big hero. She is just living a very domestic life, raising a child who she rescued who was burnt really badly. And there is just so much magic in the story without there being this grand adventure. It was just so touching. It was a very dark story. Ursula K. Le Guin is not afraid to go to really dark places, but I think because of her like Taoist beliefs, it really balances well when she does have beautiful things happen in the story. They kind of really do shine brighter because of the darkness. And yeah, this book really touched me, and it is like what I was complaining about Project Hail Mary. This one is one that I think will stay with me for a long time. The characters, the events that happen in it, the world. And that can be said about the next 2 books as well. Number 2 is Never Let Me Go by, I have it here, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This book destroyed me. This is a terrible beat-up, made-for-movie copy that I have, but yeah, this book really left an impression on me. I actually really resisted it at first. The first like quarter of the novel, I was just not in it. It's sort of written in a way where it feels like you're almost this woman's therapist, and you're not sure why any of this information is relevant or interesting. But once you do get like about halfway, you just get so invested. And because you feel so close to her, like she is someone talking to you, and you're her therapist, or you're in her life in some way, it becomes even more emotionally impactful. And it is a really tragic story, but in a really quiet way. I mean, the tragedy is extreme, and it's actually very, very disturbing. But the way that the characters react, the way that they don't rebel, it's very haunting. And it is a perfect novel, and it is a perfect work of science fiction. Number 1, the 2nd book in the Earthsea series, The Tombs of Atuan. A lot that I said about the 4th book in the series, Tehanu, can be said about this one. It is very dark, very disturbing in some places, but also very, very beautiful. And that contrast just amplifies the beauty of the story. This one's even shorter and even more simple. This one takes place mostly just in one tomb, one underground tomb, and a little bit of the land around it, but it just takes place in one place. It is a coming-of-age story, so in that way it is a little bit more traditional than Tehanu was, where it follows a middle-aged woman. This is a coming-of-age story about a young girl who is brainwashed by a cult that she is living in where she is told that she is the reincarnated figurehead of their cult, but she really has no power. She meets a man who is her prisoner, who is a wizard, and he kind of undoes the brainwashing through these very slow, meditative conversations where they also become friends, and he convinces her to run away from the tombs and to free herself and to become her own person and not who everyone has been telling her to be this whole time. And it is just such a beautiful story, and again, it will stay with me for a long time. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Stay tuned to find out what I read in the later half of this year. I'll probably do monthly reading updates. Bye.